Hey everybody, what's going on? Maxx here, got another Master Duel video for you. So, had to come to it eventually, coming back to Tearlaments now that the, Bystials have dropped. It's actually been a minute since I've played this deck, relatively speaking, for the channel, and I definitely meant to come back to this sooner, but honestly, between the MCS and wanting to test the deck that I was playing for that, for the Invitational, and then so many other new decks to try. Branded Bystial, Dragon Link, and we've also seen our very fun variant of Mathmech, I believe, at the time this video is coming out. So now, after trying all the stuff that I was really eager to try, we're going to come back to Tearlaments here, which I'm also eager to play as well, now that we have a lot of new additions to the deck, a lot of very significant ones here. So this is the first time I've played the deck with the stuff, I mean the Ishizu cards, actually hit, as well as Terraforming Gone. We did test with these limitations before the banlist drop, but of course at that point in time, we did not have the Bystials, which have slotted right into the Tearlament deck here. As you can see, we're playing Magnamhut, a Druiswarm, and then 3 Baldrake as well. This build, actually, by the way, I am straight up using Rulkallos' top 8 build from the MCS Invitational. I talked about this deck a little bit when we did our top 16 MCS Invitational video, where we looked at all the decks that got top 16 there. But Rulkallos, for those who don't know, somehow if you don't know Rulkallos, she is a fantastic Tearlaments player. I'd consider her, honestly, the best Tearlaments player I know. So when it comes to, you know, what works for the deck right now in terms of text and stuff like that, and extra deck slots, I definitely always turn to her and her list when I am looking for that. So I'm going to go ahead and link her Twitch in the description below, so that way you can go ahead and check out our channel over there. I'll go ahead and throw her YouTube in the description as well. She's a very, very good player. So again, the best Tearlament player I know. So definitely worth checking out there. But yeah, we're on 1 Magnamhut, 1 Druiswarm, and 3 Baldrake for our Bystials here. No Saranir or Lubellion. We're not really doing anything with the body of Lubellion, and we don't really want to play any of the branded spells, so no need to go into that part of Bystials. We're just playing, again, the Baldrakes, and the Searcher and the Disruption is all we really need here. We're also rocking a couple copies of Super Poly. So this is a card that I've said was pretty mid in Tearlaments in the past, but that was before the release of yet another card that came in the new selection pack, and that is going to be Garura, Wings of Restorant Life. So this card is mainly used not for its effect, but for its summoning condition of 2 monsters with the same type and attribute but different names. That is why Super Poly becomes so much better, because between Garura and Mudragon, there are extremely few boards out there that Super Poly cannot hit. And again, Super Poly is, of course, relatively unchainable. It is actually possible to chain a Super Poly with a continuous effect, but not with most conventional ones. So it's pretty rare you can actually respond to Super Polymerization. Garura, in addition to just being a good Super Poly target, actually does have relevant effects as well. It doubles any damage your opponent takes from it, which can come up sometimes when attacking for lethal. And when it's sent to the graveyard, you can even draw a card. So it's like, not only is this card a great target for Super Poly, it even like helps pay for itself. It also helps you find lethal sometimes. This card's actually just insane. I kind of can't believe they printed this knowing Super Poly was legal, but yeah, okay, fine. We're going to definitely be playing with it moving forward. Also playing with Heartbeat. I don't think I've actually played a Tearlaments deck that's playing Heartbeat before, but given all the changes that have been going on with the deck, we definitely have a lot more room for it now moving forward. Normally, I think I would probably play a 3rd copy of Triple Tech, but also, to be fair, there is a lot of spell and trap cards, like continuous spell and trap cards in the meta, with the Bystials and Bystial Lubellion putting some branded spell and trap cards in place. Sometimes you need to get rid of that Bystial Beast. To be fair, that comes up a little bit less often in something like Tearlaments, where destroying a monster on our field is usually good for us, but it can still come up. And I mean, it's a fine card for the deck in general, of course. I just didn't often go out of my way to make room for it before. We're also rocking Foolish Burial Goods as well as regular Foolish Burial. I do really like regular Foolish Burial in Tearlaments now that we have much less Ishizu stuff. Sometimes we just need that extra help sending stuff from the deck to the graveyard, including sometimes the Ishizu stuff. I think the most notable difference, aside from the Bystials and Garura being added, that I've noticed is definitely the lack of shufflers. It's nice playing against Tearlaments, but can be sometimes a little, not stressful isn't the right word, but sometimes a little worrisome when you're playing with Tearlaments. In both cases, the now added difficulty of adding a shuffler to the graveyard means that it's harder to have disruption when you're just casually milling as you want to do anyway, which, is good for the game. That's good because Tearlaments was definitely too good at that before, but they are still definitely the top deck, just by much less of a margin than they were before. In fact, if you look at Master Duel meta, now Sprite has even been added to Tier 1 as well, so nice to see the meta starting to get to a more balanced place. Alright, I think we've talked about, the other extra deck additions that I do want to mention real quick here are, we have not one but two rank 6s coming in now. We have Beatrice, Lady of the Eternal. This is pretty expected. This is the ability to send any card from the deck to the graveyard, which is obviously extremely good in Tearlaments. So the ability to do that just for having two Bystial monsters on play, pretty good. And then we also have Wallow, founder of the Drudge Dragons. This card, I underestimated really hard the first time I read it. When I pulled it, I think I even made a comment of like, I don't think this card is really used in anything. This card's kind of cracked, actually. Not only is it generic, rank 6 graveyard hate, it actually summons the thing that you're trying to hate to your field instead of just like banishing it, or you can just return it to the deck if you would rather do multiple things. Also a quick effect, by the way. But also, it gives not only itself, but every monster you control 100 attack and defense for every card in your opponent's graveyard. That's insane. That makes it so stupidly powerful, just beat over your opponent's board and or OTK. Yeah, this card's insane. I actually really, really like it. So, we're definitely going to be seeing it in action here in one of our games coming up. But let's go ahead and break this list down card by card. Again, thank you, Rulkallos, for putting together such an awesome Tearlaments list as expected and as usual. Let's go ahead and break it down card by card, and then we'll look at some gameplay. So we are on 3 Maxx, 2 Tearlaments Merrli, 3 Ash Blossom and a Joyous Spring, 2 Tearlaments Havnis, 1 Fairy Tale Snow, 2 Tearlaments Scheiren, 3 Tearlaments Reinoheart, 1 Keldo, the Sacred Protector, 1 Mudora, the Sword Oracle, 2 Kelbek, the Ancient Vanguard, 1 Agido, the Ancient Sentinel, 1 Bystial Magnamhut, 1 Bystial Druiswarm, 3 Bystial Baldrake, 1 Foolish Burial, 1 Foolish Burial Goods, 2 Triple Tactics Talent, 1 Primeval Planet's Perlerino, 3 Tearlaments Scream, 2 Super Polymerization, 1 Tearlaments Heartbeat, 1 Tearlaments Cryme, and then 2 Tearlaments Sulliek. There's our main deck. For the extra deck, we're on 1 Mudragon of the Swamp, 1 Tearlaments Kitkallos, 1 Garura, Wings of Restorant Life, 1 Predaplant Dragostapelia, 1 Tearlaments Rulkallos, 1 Tearlaments Kaliedo-Heart, 1 Abyss Dweller, 1 number 41 Bagooska, the terribly tired Tapir, 1 Time Thief for Doer, 1 Beatrice, Lady of the Eternal, 1 Wallow, founder of the Drudge Dragons, 1 Divine Arsenal Zeus, Sky Thunder, 1 Dark the Dark Charmer Gloomy, 1 Sprite Elf, and then 1 Sprite Sprind, another new addition that I forgot to mention. This card can be used to, of course, dump a Merrli into the graveyard in order to trigger her effect, and is very good for unbreaking certain hands. But let's go ahead and do it for the list. Now let's go ahead and look at some games. Alright, so our first duel is going to be a mirror match. We actually have a lot of mirror matches. Well, not a lot, it's only 2, I think. Yeah, it's only 2 mirror matches, but this is going to be the first of them here. Going to be going second, and our opening hand is alright. I mean, we don't actually have any Tearlaments action going on, but we have some disruption here, multiple forms of disruption in the form of Bystials. And then we also have the potential to make like a rank 4 play as well, and triple attack talent. So honestly, even though we don't have any Tearlaments stuff actually in our hand, I think this hand's completely fine. So let's just start with a Rhoda for a Reinoheart, and then activate Foolish Burial Goods, sending the Sulliek in order to activate its effect. That will allow them to add a Tearlaments Scheiren to their hand. So they're definitely off to the races here. Tearlaments Scheiren is going to send the Reinoheart from hand to grave, which is a little bit odd, but opponent milled Kelbek and Agido, and they're going to activate both. My opponent is fully getting it twisted. And let me tell you something. I have played so many games against Tearlaments where I'm not on Tearlaments, and they blind mill like this on turn 1, and I'm always so frustrated because I'm like, I could so easily be on Tearlaments, and you would get so punished right now. And finally, I've been waiting for this. A game where I'm finally on Tearlaments and my opponent super punishes themselves by activating millers unnecessarily. what my opponent could have done, I guess assuming they have another monster in hand, well, I don't know. See, I don't really know why they pitched a Reinoheart here. They could have just normal Reinoheart, just done a regular Tearlament line, but, you know, even if they did not have access to Reinoheart, they could have still potentially made, like, a Redoer with another level 4 monster. I don't know. I feel like they had plenty of options here, but they chose to get really, really greedy. That looks like they have another Tearlament card because they're just going to proc the Reinoheart. I guess that makes sense why they sent it as well. Oh, they just have 2 Reinoheart. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But, yes, so they ended up milling a ton of stuff for both of us, but definitely better stuff for me than for them. On their end, they did hit Merrli and Havnis, as well as, I believe, their Scream they get to activate as well. So, yes, they do get that, but we hit so much. As you can see, we hit Snow, Scheiren, Havnis, Scream, Heartbeat, and Cryme. No, not Cryme. Sulliek is what I meant to say. But, yeah, we get to go ahead and fire off a lot more effects than they are, and all of a sudden our board state looks so much better. Opponent's gonna max C, but I get to just drop not just one, but both of my Bystials in response to banish both of their fuses that they're trying to fuse with. So, yeah, this definitely went far better for me than it did for my opponent, and they absolutely had zero reason to activate either of those millers. They had access to Reinoheart, they had access to Redoer if they needed to detach the Scheiren and activate the effect. I am so glad I get to punish someone being greedy for once. Like I said, I was very much waiting for this. So I'm going to summon the Kitkallos, and I'm actually going to use, you might have seen that the other Havnis didn't proc. That's because I summoned the Kitkallos using the Havnis that was going to proc, so that way I gave my opponent one less draw off of the Maxx C. Otherwise, I would have been fine doing 2 fusion summons there, but we'll only give them the 1 draw here. And, yeah, neither of their Bystials are going to proc. I am, of course, going to proc both my Kitkallos and my Magnamhut in that order to chain block. And I would use Kitkallos to add a Scheiren, since I already have both Reinoheart and Sulliek, and I also have Cryme in my hand. The only other card I would really add besides Scheiren is Scream at this rate. Alright, opponent's got a Kaliedo-Heart, but I have this triple attack, so I'm planning on just using that to take care of my opponent's Kaliedo-Heart there. Opponent's going to Foolish Burial Shaddoll Beast for an extra draw, and then overlay the Reinoheart and the Scheiren into an Abyss Dweller, which is definitely annoying, but I can still go Abyss Dweller into Zeus myself. Now, my opponent normal summons a Mudora, which is actually super annoying, because I was also thinking about using Fairy Tail Snow, and I'm like, oh, now I can just chain the Mudora to the Snow. But my opponent preemptively activates the Mudora, which is, I think, another misplay there. Because now I'm just going to chain the Fairy Tail Snow in response. And, again, another misplay for my opponent. I think they could have activated this Dweller. I guess, to be fair, if they activate Dweller, I can just activate Fairy Tail Snow in response. And it is a little bit late on the chain link for them to just pop off with the Dweller now. So, I mean, here's the thing, right? Yeah, no, I still would have responded with Snow. So I don't think that part was a misplay, not activating Abyss Dweller here. But I do think preemptively using Mudora was absolutely a misplay, because now I get to just chain them with the Snow and activate it, putting their Dweller face down. So that is no longer a threat to me during my upcoming turn. Although, again, to be fair, I could have still probably gone into a Dweller Zeus line myself. Or not even necessarily Dweller Zeus, but I could have made Dweller and then also made rank 6 like I'm doing here, and then use that to go into a Zeus. But in this case, I'm just going to summon Wallow, and then also summon a Keldo as well. So this does a couple of things, right? Because I know my opponent has a Sulliek face down in combination with this Kaliedo-Heart. I definitely don't want that to resolve its effect. So now, if my opponent chooses to activate the Sulliek sending Kaliedo-Heart, I have not 1, but 2 ways to stop it, because one of these other back rows might be imperm. I can either use Wallow-Heart's effect to detach both materials to steal the Reinoheart, or the Kaliedo-Heart rather, and then if my opponent has a response to that, I can just activate the Keldo's effect on the field to shuffle it back into the deck. And my opponent, realizing this, just ultimately ends up conceding. So, to be fair, even though we did have a lot of help from our opponent in multiple parts here, in both instances, we also had backup plans of what to do. But, like, you saw my opening hand. It was Keldo, Agido, Magnamhut, Baldrake, and triple attack. It's like such a mid opening hand, especially going second. I mean, opening 2 Bystials is actually better than mid, but going second. But it was honestly, for the most part, those millers. Our opponent needlessly activated Agido and Kelbek, and that like just set me up so well. It did so much more for me than it did for my opponent, which is why I always say don't activate the millers if you don't know what your opponent's playing, for this literal exact reason. So now that I'm done saying I told you so, let's go ahead and take a look at some more games. So this time we're going to be up against Branded Bystial Despia. Definitely one of the other big decks to look out for. It's funny, I see a lot of Branded Bystial Despia on ladder, a lot more than Sprite, but I actually think Sprite is like the better deck between the two. But Branded is one of those decks that just will always have diehard fans, so definitely not surprising to see a lot of it here. We definitely bricked quite a bit here, but even with the fact that we bricked, we can still set Super Poly and Sulliek, and between that and having Havnis in hand, we'll probably be fine. Opponent's going to start off with some fusion deployment for our Cartesia plays here, as well as setting up the Bystial Magnamhut here. I'm going to fire off my Havnis in response, but the opponent's got an Ash Blossom to go ahead and negate that. It's extra painful because now not only do I not get the mills, but I also don't get to use my Sulliek to negate at some point this turn as well. So yeah, definitely going to be a little painful there. Opponent's going to fuse the Cartesia with an Albaz in order to make Albion the Branded Dragon here. Effect is going to activate in order to fuse yet again with the same 2 materials, this time in order to summon Grangular, the Dusk Dragon. I'm holding my Super Poly here just to see what my opponent's all going to end on and see if I can maybe snag 2 stronger monsters there. Alright, Bystial Rebellion setting up a Branded Beast. That is a little bit annoying. I'm going to use Super Poly in order to fuse off the Grangular and Magnamhut in order to make myself a Dragostapelia. Opponent decides to go to main phase 2. They could have used Branded Beast, yeah, during the battle phase like they're doing here, and gotten in with an extra 1,500 points of damage. Not that it would have been huge, but there was kind of no reason not to do it. But all the same, I am going to lose my Dragostapelia. But now my opponent is definitely in a much worse spot than they were in before. They're going to throw down an Expulsion, but, you know, they haven't fused with the Gimmick Puppet Nightmare, so I'm not really worried about getting locked out like that. But yeah, that one Super Poly, as you can see, turned things around greatly for me there. We were in a spot where, well, we were getting threatened with lethal, but, you know, with just that one card, we managed to pretty much answer our opponent's whole board. Now they have Expulsion, a random Unknown, as well as a random Branded Beast. That's not really doing anything. I'm just going to normal summon the Havnis and battle over the Cartesia here, passing back to the opponent. I definitely want that Cartesia off the board. This also now sets up the Sulliek to be live. Opponent's going to summon a Saronir, banishing my Dragostapelia. Going to attempt to chain Maxx to see if I can get a draw in, but my opponent's actually got an Ash Blossom they top decked here, so no draw for me in this case. Alright, looks like they're sacking the Saronir in order to bring back the Bystial Rebellion, activating both monsters' effects, I presume. Yeah, the Saronir sends the Branded Retribution, as Sulliek is going to negate the Bystial Rebellion, but our opponent's going to respond with the Branded Beast. That's fine, I pretty much expected this to happen. It is what it is. Now they can set the Branded Regained. I actually didn't realize until this duel that Saronir sends any branded spell or trap, not just a continuous one, so that's pretty cool. Thankfully, we got the mother of all top decks. We peeled Reinoheart, the actual, well, second best top deck, aside from Perlerino to then grab Reinoheart. Opponent's going to start using their Branded Regain to toss out some Bystial monsters onto my field, or during my turn onto their field, but all the Magnamhut's really going to accomplish here is proccing my Triple Tactics talent and making that live. Still, I'm going to wait on the Triple Tack. I want to wait until later, and I can steal a monster that might be a bit more decisive. Summoning the Kitkallos here, Grangular's effect is going to activate. I assume that they're going for Proskinian, which they normally do, but here they're actually going to end up going for Despian Coratus in an attempt to drop the attack points of my monsters, presumably so that, you know, I don't lethal them on this turn, which, you know, even though they are getting to summon a lot, I am actually probably going to be able to do here. I'm going to use Sulliek to try to negate this Coratus, but my opponent's going to fire off the Expulsion. Again, thankfully they did not set up the Gimmick Puppet in their graveyard here, but they do get to summon an Ash Blossom. Fun fact, this is actually the first Expulsion I've been hit with, and as you can see, it wasn't even for the lock. So that's definitely not something I've been seeing a lot in, like, Diamond as I've been laddering here. So I'm going to let my opponent fuse for the Mirror Jade. I mean, I don't really have a means of stopping them, but that will not only allow me to dump 5 with the Kitkallos, which unfortunately didn't dump anything relevant, I also get to then use the triple attack. Opponent's going to try to use Brandon in red, but I'm going to chain with the Keldo in order to make sure that doesn't end up doing anything. They will banish with the Mirror Jade that I'm about to steal. That's totally fine. I expect that to happen. And then, oh yeah, they're also using the Branded Retribution to get back their expulsion. Completely fine. I don't care about that at all. There goes my Reinoheart. A little sad, but it is what it is. I do ultimately still get to steal the Mirror Jade here, and then link it off with the Ash Blossom in order to make Dark the Dark Charmer. My plan was just to use Dark in order to steal the Mirror Jade back again, and then just battle, but fortunately for me, my opponent has actually decided to activate the Branded Beast, which will now allow me to add Scheiren and make my hand very live. Not just live, but oh no, it's not lethal just yet. That's right, because our opponent does get to summon another Bystial monster here. Actually, I think we even had a point where we could potentially smack for lethal, but that's right, it was this point here, because I am going to get to make not only Rulkallos, but the Kaliedo-Heart as well. Or no, sorry, not the Kaliedo-Heart, the Mudragon. But I could have, here's the thing, alright, let me explain this a little bit better. I could have made Kaliedo-Heart here, but even with Kaliedo-Heart, Rulkallos, and Scheiren, that would have been 7,800 points of damage, and I put it to 79, so I did not have lethal. It was very, very close, but I didn't actually have lethal. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to go for a Zeus line here. So yeah, here is the Zeus. I have that up as well as Rulkallos, as well as Sulliek. So I have a lot of disruption available to me here. But it's going to use Magnamhut to add the Fallen of Albaz. That's completely fine. Even if my opponent decides to normal summon it, which they do, normal summon Albaz, Pitcher, or Courier, I'm just going to use Sulliek to negate it. That will allow me to sack the Rulkallos, which can then bring itself right back. So even if my opponent's last card is Branded Fusion, I can still go ahead and stop it with the Rulkallos here. Opponent's going to then activate the Branded Regained in order to bring back the Saronir, as well as the Branded Beast. Now that went by a little bit quickly, but they used Branded Beast to target my Zeus there, and I actually let it resolve. Now you might be thinking, wait, why would you let that resolve? That doesn't, like, what is it, like, why? The reason is because of my own Rulkallos and Sulliek. Even if Rulkallos had the ability to bring itself back again, which it does not, because I have already sacked it with Sulliek and is now no longer fusion summoned, but summoned by its own effect. Even if I could bring back Rulkallos here, if my opponent's last card is Branded Fusion, then I actually don't have a way to stop that, and I would lose my Zeus either way to the Branded Beast. So my board is so much more valuable than my opponent's right now that there's no reason for me to chain Zeus there. My opponent's going to send the Bystial Rebellion to grave and then concede, because I imagine their last card in hand was in fact the Branded Fusion or a similar card that they would have tried to use to get them out of the situation had I fired off the Zeus in response to the Branded Beast. But because we still have Rulkallos and a card to send, we can negate anything our opponent might have looming in hand there. That's relevant. So there is that duel. We have a couple more to look at. Let's go straight into the next one here. Gonna find ourselves in yet another mirror match. It's a very close mirror match. I think my opponent might be on pretty much the same list, if not the exact same list. Guess I'm not the only one net decking Rulkallos out here. Makes sense. Alright, we're gonna be going second. I have Ash Blossom and Baldrake here, so definitely feeling not too bad. But my opponent looks like are just totally bricked. Nothing in hand. My hand's not looking too great either, though. I'm actually going to have to get it twisted here in order to find plays. I know I just talked about how you should not be doing this, how you should not proc Agido if you don't know what you're playing against, but with a hand like this, I have no other plays. So I'm going to special Mudora, and I will in fact activate the Agido effect. Now, fortunately, my opponent builds Baldrake and Snow, which kind of leads me to believe they're also on Tearlaments, and in fact they are. Don't worry, I'm just the luckiest player in the world. See, when I get it twisted, I mill a ton of relevant stuff for me, and then just nothing relevant for my opponent, except for Fairy Tail Snow. But you all don't have YouTuber luck. So, no, I'm kidding, but no. I guess I will add that caveat that, you know, unless your only options to make plays is to get it twisted and use a miller when you don't know what you're playing against, then you should not do it. The reason I, kind of made it such an emphasis, a point to emphasize it when my opponent played, my first opponent, was because they had a Reinoheart. They had a way to make plays. They could have made so many plays without having to proc the Millers there. Again, so unlucky for my opponent. They even hit a Kelbek and still did not hit anything relevant. Actual unluckiest Tearlament player in the world, Pharaoh is. But, what was I saying? Who even knows? It's Tearlament. We have effects popping off back and forth. I milled a Keldo, so thankfully my opponent's stuff is not going to be too relevant here. They're going to go for the Fairy Tale Snow. I'm not going to use Baldrake. I'm actually going to use my onboard Mudora because they still have like 6 other cards in their graveyard. So I figured if they wanted to activate it again, they probably would. And I wanted to save the Baldrake just to make sure that it hits the field. Because if they chain the Snow and then I have to put it back with the Mudora, then I don't get to summon Baldrake, not only off that chain, but on, for this turn in general. And I would like Baldrake to hit the board at some point here, so. Alright, we get to proc both effects here, both fusers for not only Rulkallos, but also the Kaliedo-Heart. Kaliedo-Heart's going to put back my opponent's Havnis. I'll normal summon the Fairy Tale Snow, special Baldrake, just making sure I have more than enough for lethal on board in case my opponent has something tricky, but they don't. So we have defeated Pharaoh, the unluckiest Tearlament player in the world. Seriously, how do you mill 10 cards and not hit anything? Like, I mean, they hit some things, but they pretty much didn't hit anything relevant there. Very rough, very brutal. But we have one more duel to show. Let's go straight into it here. Alright, our final opponent is going to be on Adventure, Assault, Synchron stuff. So, surefire way to get featured by me, by the way. Just play a Synchro Pile deck, and I would love to show off your game. But, yeah, my opponent's deck is pretty cool. One of the cool things that they're doing in particular is they have Blackwing, the something or another. It's the level 2 one that summons itself if there's a monster with 2,000 or more attack on the field. By the way, my opponent very much wanted this win a lot more than I did. Not only do they have Magnamhut for my fuser, but they even have the Ash Blossom when I try to get a little bit of extra advantage off the Maxx here. But, yeah, brutal for me. But yeah, they have the level 2 Blackwing tuner that summons itself if you control a monster with 2,000 or more attack, which I hadn't even really considered this before, but you can just splash that Blackwing tuner into a Synchro Pile deck, and then it can special itself while you control Chaos Ruler, and you can sync it in Chaos Ruler to make the towers, the full Armor Master. The other nice thing that I'm noticing here too is that Blackwing monster is level 2. This opponent is not on sprites, but that means it does synergize with sprites as well. I perhaps have found another tuner to try, maybe over Diva, maybe in addition to Diva, who knows, but definitely expect me to be cooking with some Blackwing cards in the future with my Synchro sprite deck there, so. Yeah, I'm gonna have to end my turn in a very suboptimal position due to the disruption that my opponent had. I'm gonna use this Cryme on their Lubellion, but it didn't make me send my Merrli to the graveyard. Oh, it's because I didn't shuffle it back, I think is what happened. I think you have to actually shuffle the card back in order to send a card from hand to graveyard, so I think that's why it didn't make me send the Merrli, but that's actually unfortunate. I was actually kind of counting on this Merrli getting sent so that way I could have a Rulkallos up, but alas, fate was not so kind to us here. But I will definitely still take great pleasure in watching my opponent combo off here. Again, I definitely do not mind featuring games where I lose if it is to very cool decks as my opponent is showing off here. Here I think they actually go for Baron. Yeah, oh no, Cheng-Yang, sorry. They're going to go for the Cheng-Yang and not the Blackwing Full Armor Master, but my opponent is playing it in their extra deck, the Royal one that everyone was given. Alright, yep, there goes the Cheng-Yang. Now they summon the Adventure token, and now they have enough damage on board to just battle over my Scheiren and take me out here. So, again, if I'm going to lose, I would definitely not mind losing to a cool deck, especially as Tearlament, because then that gives this cool deck that I'm playing against another accomplishment to add They stomped out yet another Tearlament player. But yeah, that's going to go ahead and do it for these games. Thank you all very much for watching. Now let's go ahead and move to our outro. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the very end of the video like this. That means a whole lot to me. Not just personally, but it's also a great way of supporting the channel as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other means, you can of course feel free to comment and or subscribe right here on YouTube. I'm always looking to the comments section. You guys leave some pretty awesome feedback as far as like constructive criticism goes when it comes to deck building, gameplay, channel content, all that stuff. So feel free to leave your opinion down there. I will be sure to take a look at that there. And then subscribing is going to be the best way to get notifications of when these videos drop. That does happen every day, by the way, so if you're looking for daily Master Duel content, you've come to the right place. And there are more places where you can get some daily Master Duel content. If you check out the description below, follow the top link over to my Patreon page. There for just $5 a month, which is as much as you pay for a booster pack, you'll find a lot more value than a pack full of filler over there. We've got some previews for content upcoming here on the channel. We've got some exclusive games that are only posted over on Patreon over there. We've got some Q&As, and then you can also have your name featured in this lovely credit sequence where I thank all of the people who are helping contribute over there on Patreon. It's a huge support to the channel, and it really means a lot as well. So thank you everyone who is donating that is featured here on screen. And again, you know, it's not just a pure donation. You do get some more daily Master Duel content over there just for being a part of the Patreon. But I think that's about all the time that I have for today's video. Once again, I just want to thank you so very much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. Again, it just means a lot as I do put a decent amount of work into getting these videos out every single day. But that's about all the time that I've got for now. So without further ado, this is Maxx. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.